Admiral Kim's fingers trembled slightly as she replayed the holographic recording for the 5th time. The blue-green world of Proxima Centauri IV filled the projection space before her, peaceful for just a moment, then erupted in flashes of white light that spread across the planet's surface like a disease. The colony of New Seoul, 3 million human lives, gone in minutes. "Play it again," she ordered, her voice steady despite the rage building inside her. Her intelligence officer, Captain Jun, hesitated. "Admiral, I'm not sure." "Play it again," Kim repeated, harder this time. The recording reset. The peaceful planet. The sudden flashes. The death. Kim had spent 40 years in the United Earth Fleet. She had risen through the ranks during what historians call the Great Peace, 3 centuries of prosperity following humanity's acceptance into the Galactic Council. For most of her career, the fleet had existed primarily as a ceremonial force, conducting rescue operations and scientific missions. The weapons they carried were mostly for show, limited by Council regulations, or so the Council believed. "The Veraxi ships," she said, "tracked their course back to origin." Captain Jun nodded, manipulating the holographic controls. The view expanded, showing the retreat path of the 7 Veraxi warships that had conducted the strike. "They came directly from Veraxi space, Admiral. This was not a rogue action. The attack formation and coordination suggest Central Command authorization." Kim stood, walking around the holographic projection. Her office aboard the UES Resolute was small but private. Only she and Jun knew what they were viewing. "What was the Council's response to our emergency communication?" Jun's face tightened. "They've acknowledged receipt. They're convening an emergency session to discuss proper diplomatic channels for conflict resolution." "Discuss," Kim repeated flatly. "Millions dead, and they want to discuss." The Veraxi ambassador claims it was a misunderstanding, a training exercise gone wrong. Kim laughed, a harsh sound with no humor. 7 warships accidentally fired planet-killer weapons on a human colony. And the Council believes this. "The Council prefers to believe it," Jones said carefully. "The alternative would require action. The Veraxi are founding members. Humans are newcomers." Kim turned away from the hologram, looking instead at the small picture frame on her desk. Her family, wife, son, daughter, all smiling back at her from the gentle hills outside New Seoul. "All dead now. Get me the president," she said. "Admiral." "Now, Captain." While Jun established the secure connection, Kim composed herself. Her personal grief would need to wait. What mattered now was the response. The hologram shifted, and President Han appeared, his face grim. "Admiral Kim, I've just finished reviewing your report." "And the Council, Mr. President." Han's expression darkened. "They're suggesting we send a diplomatic mission to Veraxi Prime to discuss reparations. They've offered to mediate." "Reparations," Kim repeated, "for 3 million lives. The Council believes." "The Council has never lost a colony," Kim interrupted. "With respect, sir, this isn't a trade dispute. This is an act of war." Han was silent for a long moment. "The Council forbids war between member species. You know this, Admiral." "I know many things, Mr. President, including what's in Section Black." The President's eyes widened slightly. Section Black was the most classified program in human history, a contingency plan created when humanity first joined the Council, a plan that violated every treaty Earth had signed. "That program is theoretical only," Han said carefully, aware that even secure channels might be monitored. "No, sir, it's not." Kim pressed a button, sending encrypted data to the President's terminal. "These are the activation codes for the Perseus network. 112 fully automated shipyards hidden throughout our territory. 2,000 warships maintained in standby mode. Weapon systems that would make the Council revoke our membership immediately if they knew." "How do you have these codes?" Han asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because someone needed to have them. Someone needed to remember that the galaxy isn't the peaceful utopia we pretend it is. Kim's voice was steady. I spent my career smiling at alien diplomats while overseeing the greatest military secret in human history. President Hand looked down at the data, then back up at Kim. If we activate these systems, we break every promise we've made for 300 years. The Veraxi broke their promises first, Kim replied. They believed we would be bound by council law while they committed genocide. They believed we were weak. Han closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, something had changed. The Security Council is meeting in 1 hour. I need your recommendations before then. Activate Perseus. All of it. The Veraxi struck without warning. We should do the same. The Council will do nothing, Kim finished. They'll debate while we bury our dead. They'll form committees while the Veraxi prepare their next strike. Her voice softened slightly. Mr. President, for 3 centuries we've played by their rules. We've pretended to disarm. We've hidden our strength. Perhaps it's time to show the galaxy who we really are. Han studied her face. You understand what you're asking. Once this begins, there's no going back to the way things were. My family lived in New Seoul, Kim said simply. There's already no going back. The president nodded slowly. I'll bring your recommendation to the Security Council. In the meantime, move the Resolute to the edge of the Proxima system. Monitor for further Veraxi activity. Yes, sir. The hologram flickered out, leaving Kim alone with Captain June. Will they do it? June asked. Will they activate Perseus? Kim looked back at the recording of the attack, still playing silently. They have no choice. The Council believes in peace above all else. A noble goal. But they've forgotten that peace sometimes must be defended with force. She turned to her terminal, entering a series of commands. Across human space, dormant systems began to wake up, preparing for commands that hadn't been issued in 3 centuries. The Veraxi believe they know humanity, Kim said, watching status reports flood her screen. They've seen what we've shown them. A species eager to join the galactic community, willing to set aside our violent past. They think they understand us. A small green light appeared on her console. Perseus was online and awaiting final activation. They're about to learn how wrong they are. The Grand Council chamber was the pride of galactic civilization, a massive dome of transparent crystal that showcased the stars beyond. For thousands of years, representatives of 1,000 species had gathered here to solve problems through words, not weapons. Today, that tradition was being tested. Ambassador Park stood at the center of the chamber, her black formal suit a stark contrast to the colorful robes and natural coverings of the alien representatives around her. Her face remained calm, but inside she felt a storm of emotions. Just yesterday, she had received word that her brother and his family had been on Proxima Centauri IV when the Veraxi attack happened. Esteemed members of the Council, she began, her voice amplified throughout the chamber. For 9 generations, humans have lived among you as peaceful members of this galactic community. The chamber quieted. Even the molluscan delegates, who normally bubbled continuously, stilled their fluid sacs to listen. We embraced your laws. We accepted your limits on our military development. We believed in the promise of collective security. Park paused, letting her gaze sweep across the gathered representatives. That belief died with the 3 million humans on Proxima Centauri IV. The Veraxi representative, Diplomat Hrax, shifted uncomfortably in his hovering chair. His leathery skin flushed a deeper orange, a sign of irritation among his kind. The regrettable incident was the result of a training exercise malfunction, Hrax said, his translator converting his clicking speech to standard galactic common. The Veraxi Imperium has already offered compensation packages for the affected families. Park turned to face him directly. Compensation packages. You think credits can pay for genocide? That term is inappropriate, Hrax replied, his 4 upper limbs making dismissive gestures. This was an unfortunate accident, not a deliberate. We have sensor data proving your ships changed course to specifically target our colony. Park interrupted. We have communication logs showing your fleet commander received direct orders from Veraxi High Command. A shocked murmur ran through the chamber. Many representatives turned to look at the Veraxi delegation. Grax's skin turned a mottled pattern of orange and red. These are serious accusations. The Council has procedures for investigating such claims. Committees can be formed. Evidence can be examined. In the meantime, we urge our human friends to remain calm and we have been calm for 300 years, Park said. Her voice remained steady, but her hands gripped the podium tightly. While we dismantled our most powerful weapons, the Veraxi expanded theirs. While we shared our technology freely, the Veraxi hoarded advances. While we joined your economic collectives, the Veraxi manipulated markets to their advantage. The old Vul Chancellor, Mika, floated forward on his anti-gravity chair. His species was among the oldest in the Council, and his opinion carried significant weight. Ambassador Park, he said, his voice a gentle vibration. These are troubling claims. The Council will investigate fully, I assure you. But in the meantime, we must all adhere to the non-aggression protocols that have kept peace for millennia. Park looked at him with something like pity. Chancellor, with respect, I am not here to request an investigation. I am here to inform the Council of a decision already made. She touched a small device on her wrist, and a holographic display appeared above the central platform. It showed a formal document with the seal of Earth's United Government. 12 hours ago, the United Earth Parliament held an emergency session. By a vote of 193-0, with no abstentions, Earth has formally withdrawn from the non-aggression protocols, effective immediately. The chamber erupted in sound, some species shouting, others emitting high-pitched whistles of alarm, still others communicating their distress through color changes or pheromone releases. The Vul Chancellor had to activate the ceremonial sound of unity, a deep, resonating tone that traditionally called for order, 3 times before the chamber quieted. Ambassador Park, the Chancellor said, his normally calm voice trembling slightly, you must understand what you are saying. The non-aggression protocols are the foundation of galactic peace. No species has withdrawn in over 7,000 years. We understand perfectly, Park replied. We also understand that these protocols failed to protect our colony. As of this moment, humanity is exercising its sovereign right to self-defense. The Veraxi representative's skin had turned a pale yellow, the color of fear in his species. This is an overreaction. The Council has procedures. The time for procedures has passed, Park said, cutting him off. 3 million humans are dead, Diplomat Rax. Their blood is on your hands. The Vul Chancellor moved his chair closer to Park. Ambassador, please. Self-defense is indeed permitted under Council law, but it must be proportional and supervised. Proportional, Park repeated. An interesting word. She touched her wrist device again, and a holographic display changed to show a map of human space. Red dots began to appear across it. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. For security reasons, I cannot tell you exactly what these indicators represent, Park said. But I can tell you that humanity's definition of proportional is about to change. The chamber had gone completely silent. Even the perpetually nervous Mictic delegates were still. Ambassador, the Chancellor said quietly, what is happening? Park's smile was cold. What should have happened 300 years ago, Chancellor? Humanity is remembering who we are. She stepped away from the podium, but turned back before leaving the central platform. One final message, from President Han to the Veraxi Imperium specifically. She looked directly at Rax. You believe that attacking the human colony would show your strength. Instead, you have awakened something that has been sleeping for a very long time. As Park walked out of the chamber, emergency communication devices began chiming throughout the room. Representatives huddled with their aides, reading incoming reports with increasing alarm. The Vul Chancellor moved to the central platform, His normally blue skin turned almost white with shock as he read his own messages. "This council is adjourned," he announced. "All representatives should contact their governments immediately. May wisdom guide us through the dark times that are coming." As Park entered the human embassy shuttle, her aide handed her a secure communication device. "It's Admiral Kim, Ambassador. Perseus is fully operational. The fleet awaits your confirmation to proceed." Park took a deep breath, thinking of her brother's family and the millions of others lost. "Tell Admiral Kim, Operation Sleeping Giant is now active." The emergency meeting of the Galactic High Council had been called with only 10 minutes' notice. Most representatives had no time to change into formal robes or prepare statements. They rushed in wearing whatever they had on, a breach of thousand-year-old protocol that itself spoke to the gravity of the situation. Representative Tam burst through the doors last, his 6 tentacles twisting in patterns that signaled extreme distress. As the Council's head of intelligence gathering, Tam rarely appeared at public sessions. His species, the Olo, were naturally secretive, preferring to work behind the scenes. For him to come in person meant something unprecedented was happening. "Forgive the intrusion," Tam said, his voice translator working overtime to keep up with his rapid speech. "But we have a level 1 security situation." The council chamber was smaller than the Grand Hall where Ambassador Park had delivered humanity's withdrawal notice the day before. This room was for the inner circle only, the 12 species that formed the High Council, those who made the real decisions that guided galactic policy. The Vul Chancellor, still looking shaken from yesterday's events, gestured for Tam to approach the central platform. "Speak freely, Representative. What have you discovered?" Tam connected his neural interface to the chamber's projection system. Immediately, images flooded the room. Satellite footage, sensor readings, energy signatures. "The humans have activated something they call the Perseus network," Tam explained, his tentacles still moving anxiously. "Our initial assessment suggested it might be a defensive grid of some kind. We were wrong." The images shifted to show what appeared to be ordinary asteroids throughout human space. Then the view changed. The outer rock layers were peeling away, revealing massive structures beneath. "By the first light," whispered the Makari delegate, his insect-like mandibles clicking in shock. "Those are shipyards." Tam nodded, the gesture adopted from humans. 112 of them, hidden in plain sight. Some disguised as mining operations, others as research stations or navigation beacons. More images appeared, showing enormous vessels emerging from the hidden facilities. Unlike the sleek, organic shapes preferred by most council races, these human ships were angular, intimidating, clearly designed for war, not exploration or trade. "That's impossible," the Makari delegate chittered, rising from his seat. "We have monitored human military development for centuries. Our oversight committees inspect their facilities regularly. They have adhered to council limitations on fleet size and weapon capabilities." "They showed us what they wanted us to see," Tam replied simply. "Their public military was compliant with our treaties, but they maintained this shadow force, hidden in plain sight all along." The Chancellor's skin had turned pale blue with shock. "How many vessels are we talking about, Representative?" "Based on current emergence rates and facility capacities." Tam paused. "At least 2,000 capital ships. Perhaps 3 times that many support vessels." A stunned silence fell over the chamber. The entire Council peacekeeping fleet numbered only 500 ships. "There's more," Tam continued. "We've detected energy signatures consistent with weapons testing near Jupiter. The yields exceed anything in our current registry." New footage appeared, showing what looked like an ordinary human space station in orbit around Jupiter. Suddenly, a beam of concentrated energy shot from the station toward one of Jupiter's smaller moons. The moon, 20 kilometers in diameter, shattered instantly. "That station was registered as a deep space observation platform," Tam said. "It appears to be a weapons platform of unprecedented power." The Drav representative, a crystalline being who rarely spoke at council sessions, emitted a series of sharp tones. This is a violation of at least 17 council treaties. How could they have hidden this from us for so long? Tam's tentacles twisted uncomfortably. We believe this deception has been ongoing since they joined the council 3 centuries ago. What we're seeing is the result of a long-term strategy they call the Sleeping Giant Protocol. He brought up a new image, an internal human military document with that title. We only managed to access this after their withdrawal from the non-aggression protocols triggered changes in their encryption systems. The Chancellor leaned forward to study the document. What does this protocol entail? It appears to be a contingency plan created when humanity first joined the Council, Tam explained. They publicly embraced peace while secretly preparing for war. They maintained the appearance of compliance while building a hidden military infrastructure that could be activated on short notice. The Makari delegates' wings buzzed in agitation. Why would they do this? What purpose could such deception serve? Tam's tentacles drooped slightly, a sign of deep concern. Based on what we've decoded so far, the humans never truly trusted the Council's ability to protect them. They viewed our peacekeeping measures as insufficient. And now? Asked the Chancellor. Now they have activated everything, Tam said. All hidden shipyards are at full production. All concealed weapon platforms are online, and their ships are moving toward Veraxi space in formation. New tactical displays appeared, showing the movement of the human fleet. It was organizing into 3 massive battle groups, each taking a different approach vector toward Veraxi territory. Can the Veraxi stop them? Asked a reptilian delegate from the Outer Rim. Tam's tentacles went completely still, the Olo equivalent of a grim expression. The Veraxi military is significant by Council standards. They have 400 warships, the largest fleet of any member species. He paused. It will not be enough. Not against this. The Chancellor closed his eyes briefly. Contact the human government. Tell them we wish to negotiate. Perhaps we can still. We've tried, Tam interrupted. They are no longer responding to Council communications. Then contact the Veraxi. Tell them to pull back, to offer reparations, anything to avoid conflict. The Veraxi High Command believes the humans are bluffing, Tam said. They still don't understand what they're facing. On the tactical display, the human fleets continued their inexorable advance. In one corner of the projection, a timer counted down, 18 hours until the lead elements would reach Veraxi space. All this time, the Chancellor said softly, we thought we had tamed them. We believed they had set aside their warrior past to join our peaceful collective. Tam's voice was equally quiet. They never abandoned that past. They merely concealed it, waiting for the day they would need it again. The council chamber fell silent as the representatives watched the human war machine awaken fully, like a giant that had been sleeping among them unnoticed, until now. The Veraxi border station outpost Krell went dark at exactly 300 Galactic Standard Time. The station's final transmission was brief. Unknown vessels approaching. Configuration doesn't match any council registry. Wait, those are human ships. But they can't be. Then silence. 5 minutes later, Outpost Zev ceased communications mid-report. Then outposts Dren, Tull, and Mox fell silent in rapid succession. Within 2 hours, all 17 Veraxi border stations had gone dark. On Veraxi Prime, Supreme Commander Hursk stared at the tactical display with growing horror. The outer defense ring was completely gone, with no survivors reporting. More alarming was the speed. The human fleet had somehow bypassed the early warning systems entirely, appearing as if from nowhere. How is this possible? Hursk demanded, his 4 arms gesturing sharply at his officers. Where did these ships come from? Our intelligence indicated the humans had only 40 warships in their entire fleet. His intelligence chief, a veteran of border conflicts with minor non-council races, had no answer. The council oversight committees verified their fleet size annually. They couldn't have hidden. They did hide them. Hursk cut him off. And now those ships are 3 hours from our main defense line. The tactical display updated, showing 3 massive human fleets approaching Veraxi space from different vectors. The central fleet was the largest, over 500 ships, many of a class the Veraxi had never seen before. The designation tags were flashing red, indicating unknown capabilities and threat levels. "Send the message again," Hursk ordered. "Tell them we are willing to discuss compensation for the Proxima incident. Tell them the attack was unauthorized. Tell them." "They're not responding to any communications," his communications officer replied. "We've tried all frequencies, all protocols. They're receiving our transmissions, but they're ignoring them." Hursk's skin flushed dark orange with fear. The Veraxi Imperium had the largest military in Council space, but it was designed for small border conflicts and showing force during trade negotiations. It had been over 1,000 years since they had faced a true war. "Contact the Council," he said finally. "Request emergency intervention by the peacekeeping fleet." While his officers scrambled to follow orders, Hursk stared at the approaching human armada. How had they hidden this? And why reveal it now, when a diplomatic solution could still be reached? An alarm sounded, and the tactical display updated again. The human fleets had accelerated, using a drive technology the Veraxi sensors couldn't identify. The new estimated time to engagement: 45 minutes. Admiral Lee stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the stars streak by. The Vengeance was the flagship of the Central Fleet, a dreadnought-class vessel that had spent 300 years hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid near Saturn. Now it led 500 warships toward the heart of Veraxi space. "Admiral, we're receiving another transmission from Veraxi Command," her communications officer reported. "They're offering to open diplomatic channels and discuss reparations for Proxima Centauri IV." Lee didn't turn from the view screen. No response. "Admiral, they claim the attack was unauthorized. They're offering to surrender the officers responsible." No response. "Lieutenant," Lee repeated, her voice harder. "Those are your orders." The bridge fell silent save for the low hum of equipment. The crew understood the plan. There would be no negotiations, no discussions. The time for talk had ended when 3 million humans died. "Contact from the Council Peacekeeping Force," the communications officer said after a moment. "Admiral Zrith is requesting we halt our advance and allow them to mediate." Lee finally turned. "Put the Admiral through. Audio only." A gravelly voice filled the bridge. "Admiral Lee, this is Admiral Zrith of the Council Peacekeeping Fleet. You are in violation of multiple Council directives. Stand down your forces immediately and prepare for boarding and inspection." Lee's expression didn't change. "Admiral Zrith, your fleet is 8 light hours from our position. You have 23 vessels. I command 500. Unless you wish to join the Veraxi in what's coming, I suggest you maintain your distance." "The Council will not tolerate." "The Council's tolerance is no longer my concern," Lee interrupted. "Vengeance out." She nodded to her communications officer, who cut the connection. "Main Veraxi defense fleet is forming up around their homeworld," her tactical officer reported. 370 ships, mostly lighter classes. They've activated their orbital defense platforms as well. Lee studied the tactical display. The Veraxi were positioning their fleet in a standard defensive formation, exactly as Council military doctrine prescribed. It was a formation designed to intimidate pirates or raiders, not to fight a full-scale war. "They're still following the playbook," she said quietly. Her executive officer, Commander Kang, stepped closer. "They've never needed anything else. The Council protocols have maintained peace for thousands of years." "Peace through restraint," Lee said. "A noble goal. But restraint only works when everyone practices it." The Vengeance emerged from faster-than-light travel with its battle group, the stars snapping back into place on the view screen. Ahead, the Veraxi homeworld glowed blue-green against the blackness of space. Around it, the lights of the Veraxi defense fleet formed a protective shell. "They're hailing us again," the communications officer reported. "The message is from Supreme Commander Hursk himself." Lee considered for a moment. "Put it through." Full visual this time. The view screen changed to show a Veraxi officer, his orange skin flushed dark with stress. All four of his arms were positioned in what humans had learned was a gesture of supplication. "Admiral Lee," Hursk began, his translator converting his clicks and whistles to standard, "I urge you to reconsider this course of action. The attack on your colony was a terrible mistake, one the Imperium deeply regrets. We offer full reparations and—" "Your offer is noted," Lee interrupted. "Here are my terms. Unconditional surrender of all Veraxi military forces, immediate stand-down of your fleet, planetary shields lowered. Then we can discuss what comes next." Hursk's skin pattern shifted rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "Those terms are impossible. Our government would never." "You have 10 minutes to comply," Lee said. "After that, we begin our attack." She gestured for the communication to be cut. "Admiral," Commander Kang said quietly, "the Veraxi will never accept those terms. Their culture wouldn't allow it." "I know," Lee replied. "I'm counting on it." The minutes ticked by slowly. The Veraxi fleet adjusted their formation, bringing more ships to the front line. Their planetary shields, impressive by Council standards, shimmered visibly around their homeworld. 5 minutes remaining, the tactical officer announced. Lee nodded. "Deploy the kinetic bombardment platforms. Target military installations only." Commander Kang hesitated. "Admiral, this exceeds the proportional response doctrine by a significant margin. The Council will view this as—" "The doctrine died with our people on Proxima," Lee interrupted, her voice sharp. "Send the order, Commander." Kang nodded stiffly. "Yes, Admiral." Throughout all of known space, thousands of species that had known peace for millennia watched in real time as humanity revealed the true scope of its military power. The Veraxi fleet, proud and numerous by Council standards, lasted less than 30 minutes against weapons they had never seen before and tactics they couldn't comprehend. The kinetic bombardment, tungsten rods accelerated to near light speed, punched through the Veraxi planetary shields as if they weren't there, striking military bases with the precision of a surgeon and the force of small asteroids. By the time the Council peacekeeping fleet arrived, it was all over. The Veraxi military had been broken, their fleet reduced to debris orbiting their homeworld. And humanity, the supposedly peaceful newcomers to galactic society, had demonstrated exactly why their ancient history had both fascinated and terrified their new neighbors. The Veraxi surrender ceremony took place on their homeworld, in the Grand Hall of the Imperial Palace. Supreme Commander Hursk, his skin a pale yellow of defeat, signed the document with all four of his upper limbs trembling. Across the table, Admiral Lee watched without expression, her uniform crisp and perfect despite 2 weeks of constant combat operations. The terms were harsh but simple: total military disarmament, supervised by human forces; payment for the lives lost on Proxima Centauri IV; human oversight of the Veraxi government until certain conditions were met. "It is done," Hursk said, pushing the document across the table. Lee didn't smile. "Yes, it is." News of the surrender spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. Species that had never known war in their living memory watched in stunned silence as humanity demonstrated a truth long forgotten in the peaceful Galactic Council. Military might still mattered. 2 days later, the Council convened its largest emergency session in recorded history. Every member species sent representatives, filling the Great Crystal Dome to capacity. The mood was tense, fearful, a feeling alien to beings who had known only peace for thousands of years. Ambassador Choi entered last, wearing a simple black suit. Unlike Ambassador Park, who had delivered humanity's withdrawal from the non-aggression protocols, Choi was older, his hair gray at the temples, his walk steady and unhurried. He had been a soldier before becoming a diplomat, and it showed in his bearing. The Vul Chancellor, looking aged beyond his years, called the session to order. We gather today to address the most significant change to the galactic order in the Council's history, he began, his voice hollow. For the first time in 7,000 years, a member species has engaged in unilateral military action against another member. For the first time, a member has revealed military capabilities far beyond what was disclosed to this body. The chamber was silent. No whispers, no movement. Ambassador Choi will address the Council on behalf of humanity, the Chancellor said, then stepped aside. Choi walked to the central platform slowly, his footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. He looked around at the gathered representatives, some humanoid, others utterly alien, and began to speak without preamble. Humanity has existed for roughly 300,000 years, he said. For most of that time, we fought ourselves. Tribe against tribe, nation against nation, ideology against ideology. War shaped us. War defined us. He paused, looking directly at several of the elder species representatives. When we joined the Council 3 centuries ago, we embraced your vision of peace. We truly did. But we also remembered our history. We remembered that peace must sometimes be defended with strength. The elder of the Council, a being so ancient that her species had evolved past physical form, manifested a swirling light at the edge of the platform. Humanity has violated the spirit of our most sacred laws. The elder's voice resonated throughout the chamber, though technically remaining within their letter. You concealed military capabilities. You acted unilaterally. You refused mediation. Choi nodded. Yes, we did all those things. We also did what you could not, or would not do. The Veraxi violated Council law first, gambling that the consequences would be minimal. They were wrong. 3 million deaths is a tragedy, the elder acknowledged. But your response has shaken the foundations of galactic society. Perhaps those foundations needed shaking, Choi replied. For millennia, this Council has maintained peace through consensus and mutual economic benefit. But what happens when a member decides those benefits no longer outweigh the potential gains of aggression? What happens when consensus fails? Murmurs swept through the chamber. Many species had already run simulations showing how the Veraxi attack might have been just the beginning, had humanity not responded so decisively. The Ashrandi representative, a crystalline being who rarely spoke at such gatherings, moved to the edge of the platform. And now, will your forces withdraw from Veraxi space? Will you return to the peaceful coexistence we have maintained for millennia? Choi's expression softened slightly. We will withdraw from Veraxi space once reparations are complete and a stable government is established. We have no desire for conquest or empire. He looked around the chamber again. But humanity will not disarm again. We have learned that peace is maintained not through wishful thinking, but through strength and the will to use it. The Council session continued for hours, with representatives from dozens of species expressing their concerns, their fears, and, in some cases, their support for humanity's actions. Throughout it all, Choi stood calmly, answering questions directly and without apology. As the formal session adjourned, an unusual thing happened. Instead of leaving immediately as was customary, representatives from many species approached the human delegation. Some did so openly, others with more discretion. The Makari delegate, whose people controlled key trade routes, was among the first. My government wishes to discuss exclusive trading rights with Earth, he said quietly to Choi. We find your perspective on security compelling. The reptilian Drav, whose species had once been warriors themselves before joining the Council millennia ago, was more direct. The Drav collective would like to propose a mutual defense agreement, their representative said. Our worlds lie close to several non-council races who have grown bold in recent years. By the end of the day, the human delegation had received offers from 17 species for trade deals, military alliances, technology exchanges, and cultural programs. 3 days later, a private meeting was held in the Chancellor's chambers. Only the High Council members attended, along with the human ambassador. "You've changed everything," the Chancellor said to Choi. "In 2 weeks, you've undone thousands of years of progress toward a peaceful galaxy." Choi shook his head. "No, Chancellor. We've reminded the galaxy of something it chose to forget, that peace must be strong enough to defend itself. And if others follow your example, if they too begin building secret arsenals and forming military alliances, what then?" "Then the Council will adapt," Choi replied. "As it has always done. The goal remains the same, peace throughout known space. Only the methods need adjustment." The Chancellor's skin had turned a deep blue, a sign of deep thought among his kind. "The doom we feared from humanity was destruction," he said finally. "We worried your warlike nature would bring chaos. But this is different. This is transformation." Choi finished for him, "And it has already begun." As Choi left the Chancellor's chambers, he received a message from Admiral Lee. The Veraxi interim government was progressing well. Reparations had begun. Most importantly, other council races were sending observers to study the human military up close, not to limit it, but to learn from it. A new era had begun in the galaxy. The sleeping giant of humanity had awakened, and nothing would ever be the same. The end.